points to make it even more complicated here in Virginia. As Keith Scarborough pointed out, it's actually a state statute prohibiting him and his colleagues from replacing DRE machines with DRE machines.
That's correct.
They have to cannibalize.
I advocated for that law. I'm proud to say.
Okay, but it complicates their mission because they're stuck with a lot of DRE machines they can't replace, which is one of the reasons we had no reserve here in Prince William at all. Secondly, to your point about processing time, at River Oaks, for example, if my math was correct, by the time you got to check in to when you cast your vote, that processing time was 7 minutes on average. We had 4,600 people that day ready to cast their ballots. So you could do the math. 7 minutes times 4,600, that's a lot of time with 6 machines. Susanna Goodman with Common Cause, welcome.
Hi. Thank you, Representative Connolly, Representative Cummings, for the opportunity to present testimony on the lessons of the 2012 election and the need for election reform. My name is Susanna Goodman. I'm the director of the Voting Integrity Project at Common Cause. Common Cause is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that is dedicated to restoring the core values of American democracy and empowering ordinary people to make their voices heard in the political process. We were partners with all of the speakers here on this panel in the work of the Election Protection Coalition during this past election season. Common Cause ran the grassroots field campaign with the Election Protection Coalition, training and placing thousands of volunteers at polling places across the country. This morning, I'll focus my remarks on the benefits of the Internet for solving voting problems, but also its limitations. In general, we support the use of the Internet to facilitate information sharing, for the delivery of blank ballots to absentee voters, for registration, but we do not support it for voting. In particular, we are supporters of online voter registration. Due in part to our work, California successfully launched online registration this past election cycle. Voters could register to vote and update their registration forms from their home computers. And back at the election office, election workers did not have to struggle to decipher handwritten forms. This reduced the burden for voters and election workers alike. However, there can be problems with this type of innovation if it is not tested and vetted properly. For example, in August 2012 in Colorado, a mobile online registration system experienced a problem which resulted in registrations being lost. The Secretary of State's office admitted that the error was due to inadequate testing. Another issue that can arise with electronic databases are problems with search functions. These can be quite serious and can lead to voter disenfranchisement. In Ohio, for example, many absentee voters who had registered to vote and in fact voted in prior elections requested absentee ballots. But instead of getting a ballot, they were sent a notice saying, "You can't have a ballot because you're not registered." What was the problem? The search tool for the database was inadequate. A simple street misspelling could make a voter appear unregistered and result in these voters not receiving ballots. I like to quip that if Google had a search function this poor and inflexible, the phrase "to Google" would never have become a verb. When activists told the Ohio Cuyahoga County election director Jane Platten about the problem, her office improved their search function and came up with 865 voters who had been classified as not registered when in fact they were. The Cuyahoga board acted quickly, sending out ballots immediately and issuing improved protocols for their data search methods. The Secretary of State ultimately directed county clerks to remedy the situation with respect to queries about provisional ballots. So to recap on the registration front, online voter registration and the interactive databases they depend on can be great tools for voters and election workers. However, if not run properly and tested appropriately, can quickly disenfranchise many voters. Next, I must say that while Common Cause supports online voter registration, we emphatically do not support the casting of ballots online, whether by email or e-fax or via dedicated internet portals. I know it sounds wonderful to be able to avoid the long lines and sit with your fuzzy slippers on and cast your ballot, but there, as my colleague remarked, there are too many problems with internet voting that have not been solved, and it's a recipe for really losing our democracy. The processes of online voting and online registration sound similar, but they're very different. Online registration databases are public, therefore any tampering with these systems can be detected and quickly remedied. Online voting systems are designed to preserve the secret ballot. Voters cast their ballots and are supposed to be separated from them, at least by design. So if an election is hacked, it will likely be undetected. This is, in banking. If your banking account gets hacked, you can go to your bank and you can share your account statement. You can say, look, this is the problem. But we separate ourselves from our ballots because we have a secret ballot in this country, and it makes that reconciliation process very difficult. And there are scientists currently, right now, working to come up with systems so that we can have remote electronic voting or online voting, but we're not there yet. And to go to a system to solve the problem of long lines, which can be solved with better processes and better technology, that's really the way to go. I should say that this is not just Common Cause. Cybersecurity experts at the Department of Homeland Security and scientists at the National Institutes for Standards and Technology have also warned against using the Internet for casting ballots and adopting currently commercially available online voting systems. And I don't know if y'all have been paying attention to the Oscars, but boy, they've been having some real trouble with their online voting system. So, okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, and I will pass the mic to my colleague.
Thank you, Susanna. And next we have Katie O'Connor, who's a staff attorney with the Advancement Project.
That is correct. Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity, Congressman. My name is Katie O'Connor, and I'm a staff attorney at Advancement Project, a national civil rights organization that since 2000 has worked closely with local community organizations and election officials to eliminate barriers to voting in communities of color. We worked especially closely on the ground with Virginia citizens and civic engagement groups during the 2012 election cycle. In the November 2012 election, voters in Virginia waited in line an average of more than 25 minutes, and some voters waited up to 5 hours. And I just want to tell you a few of their stories for the people who weren't able to be here. We met a Vietnamese-American couple, business owners, who had come to vote early in the morning but had to leave because the lines were too long and they had to get to work. We actually met them after they returned to the polls a second time. It was already 8:30 at night, and as several other panelists have mentioned, it was really cold that day. And they had already been waiting for well over an hour, but still had more than an hour to wait before they could vote. We also met an African-American working mother who had come to the polls 4 times to be able to vote on Election Day because each time the lines were too long. Since Virginia doesn't have early voting and she didn't have a legal excuse to vote absentee, she had to juggle getting to work and picking her son up from school. We also met a pregnant woman who had come to the polls once, saw the line, and got discouraged. Then she actually came back with warmer clothes so that she was prepared to wait in the freezing rain. And she said to us, "I'm pregnant and scared to drink the water here, but I'm waiting to vote." President Obama was right. We have to fix that. And there are many ways to improve our elections, and we need to start having honest conversations about them. Advancement Project recommends that Virginia consider comprehensive election reforms, including early voting and no-excuse absentee voting, a modernized voter registration system to accommodate address changes and other updates at the polls, and automatic restoration of rights for people with past felony convictions. First, early voting has proven to be enormously popular among voters and election officials in the states that offer it, and needs to be expanded to the states that don't. Over 32 million people in the United States, myself included, voted early last year, comprising over a quarter of the total vote. Yet 18 states don't have in-person early voting, and 21 states don't have no-excuse absentee voting. Virginia has neither. We recommend early and no-excuse absentee voting because they could drastically reduce the long lines that plague polling places on Election Day and that actually discourage a lot of eligible voters from voting. They also have the benefit of giving voters and election officials a chance to resolve any potential issues before Election Day, before it's too late. Second, the registration system needs to be improved to allow for automatic updates and easy changes to registration information on Election Day, so that eligible voters can always vote a regular ballot in the precinct where they live. Finally, we have to do something about the 350,000 Virginia citizens who are unable to vote due to harsh felon disenfranchisement laws. These citizens include Myrtle Jones, who was convicted of a felony after defending herself against an abusive ex-husband over 20 years ago. She finally successfully restored her rights this past Labor Day, and after 20 years was able to vote in the 2012 presidential election. Citizens like Ms. Jones live and work in our communities. They pay taxes, and they should be able to participate in our democracy. We commend Governor McDonnell for his recent call for automatic restoration of rights for people with nonviolent felony convictions, and we encourage him to expand that call to all people with felony convictions. Advancement Project's Virginia Rights Restoration Campaign has been calling for reform alongside thousands of unfairly disenfranchised citizens, and we were very pleased with the governor's public support for an automatic restoration process. We can do better than this. We can do better than having 1 in 14 Virginians unable to vote due to past felony convictions. We can do better than 5-hour lines at the polls. Virginia should provide early and no-excuse absentee voting, a modernized voter registration system, and automatic restoration for people with past felony convictions. These 3 simple fixes would go a long way toward improving our elections. Thanks again.
Katie, thank you so much. And I believe, by the way, on restoration of voting rights for felons, for convicted felons, aren't we one of only 4 states that doesn't do that?
That is correct.
So,
That's absolutely correct.
all the other states, in fact, do it. Only 4 of us don't do it.
Absolutely.
Okay, just to add to our list of concerns in voting in Virginia.